Captain Amelia Stormblade Thorne, a terror of the Caribbean in her prime, knew a thing or two about navigating treacherous waters. She'd faced down Spanish galleons, weathered hurricanes that swallowed islands whole, and outsmarted the most cunning of privateers. But nothing, not even the kraken she swore she once saw off the coast of Tortuga, could have prepared her for this. One moment she was bellowing orders to her crew as the sea serpent sliced through the shimmering turquoise waves, hot on the tail of a heavily laden merchant ship. She awoke, coughing, choking on the stench of burning metal and acrid smoke. Her head throbbed like a drum hammered by a madman. Disoriented, she pushed herself to her feet, her cutlass inexplicably absent. The familiar rocking of the ship was gone, replaced by the unnerving stillness of solid ground. Tall, jagged trees surrounded her, their leaves an unnatural shade of green. The air was heavy with humidity, and the sounds of screeching insects filled her ears. She stumbled forward, pushing through dense undergrowth until she reached a clearing. Scattered across the clearing were mangled pieces of metal, twisted and blackened by fire. It was the wreckage of some kind of flying contraption, unlike anything she had ever seen, and amidst the debris were people not sailors or merchants, but men and women dressed in strange, brightly colored fabrics, their faces etched with shock and pain. "By the beard of Neptune," she muttered, her voice hoarse, "what in the devil's name?" A young woman with short, fiery red hair noticed her and rushed forward, her face a mixture of relief and confusion. I thought everyone else." Amelia frowned. "Who are you, and where am I?" "My name is Sarah," the woman said, her voice trembling. And we're in the Amazon rainforest. Our plane crashed. Do you remember anything?" "Plane?" Amelia repeated, the word foreign and meaningless on her tongue. "I remember chasing a merchant ship. I remember a flash, and then this." Sarah's brow furrowed. "A ship? But that's impossible. You must be in shock." Amelia, used to being in charge, took a step forward, her eyes scanning the clearing. "First, we need shelter and water." As the days turned into weeks, Amelia adapted to her bizarre new reality. She learned about airplanes and engines, about the world that existed centuries beyond her own. She discovered that she had somehow been flung forward in time, ripped from the 18th century and deposited in the 21st. It was a concept that defied all logic, yet the evidence was undeniable. Sarah, a medical student, became her closest ally. She helped Amelia understand the strange new world and tended to the injured survivors. They built makeshift shelters from salvaged plane parts and jungle foliage, learned to forage for food, and defended themselves against the dangers of the rainforest, venomous snakes, jaguars, and the ever-present threat of starvation. Amelia, with her experience in leadership and survival, naturally stepped into the role of leader. She organized hunting parties, rationed supplies, and maintained order among the increasingly demoralized survivors. Her gruff exterior hid a sharp mind and a fierce determination to keep them alive. A small metal box hidden within the fuselage. It was locked, but Amelia, with her years of experience picking locks on treasure chests, had it open in minutes. Inside, she found a stack of documents, neatly arranged and surprisingly intact. The documents were technical schematics, diagrams, and handwritten notes. They detailed a secret project, codenamed Kronos, which involved manipulating temporal fields for time travel. Amelia's blood ran cold. This wasn't an accident. The plane crash, her arrival in this strange future, it was all part of something bigger, something far more sinister. "I need you to see this." Together, they pored over the documents, piecing together the truth. Project Kronos was a highly classified experiment, funded by a shadowy organization known only as the Consortium. The plane, a prototype time travel device, was supposed to have been decommissioned years ago. But someone, or some group, had reactivated it and sent it on a mission to the past. "But why?" Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why would they send a plane back in time?" Amelia's eyes narrowed. They say that altering a key event in the past could rewrite the future to the consortium's advantage. The pieces began to fall into place. The flash of light, the sudden displacement. It wasn't a malfunction. It was a deliberate act of sabotage. Someone wanted to ensure the plane crashed, stranding them in this time so they couldn't interfere with the mission. They knew I was on that plane, Amelia said, her voice hardening with anger. They knew I was a risk. Sarah looked at her, her eyes wide with disbelief. I've made enemies in my time, powerful enemies. But who would want to go to such lengths to eliminate her? And what event in the past was so crucial that the consortium would risk altering the entire timeline? Amelia knew she had to find out. She had to uncover the truth behind Project Kronos and stop the consortium before they could change history. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Amelia, with Sarah's help, began using salvaged plane parts to create a rudimentary communication device. Meanwhile, tensions within the group were rising. Some survivors, weary of the constant struggle, wanted to stay put and simply survive. Others, inspired by Amelia's determination, were eager to fight back. A young engineer named David, a quiet but resourceful man, became Amelia's second-in-command, helping her build the communication device and strategize their next move. One day, while exploring a nearby cave system, David stumbled upon a hidden chamber inside. He found a cache of supplies, food, medicine, and, most surprisingly, weapons, rifles, pistols, and ammunition. It was clear that someone had been using this cave as a secret base, and that someone was likely connected to the consortium. Amelia, you need to see this, David said, his voice urgent. I think we're not alone. Amelia and Sarah followed David into the cave. The sight of the weapons confirmed their worst fears. The consortium had eyes on them. They were being watched. They're waiting for us to die, Amelia said, her voice grim. They think we're trapped here, helpless. She gathered the survivors and laid out her plan. They would use the weapons to defend themselves, complete the communication device, and expose the consortium's plot to the world. It was a risky plan, but it was their only chance of survival. The first sign of trouble came in the form of a drone. A small, unmanned aircraft that buzzed overhead, its camera lens staring down at them. Amelia knew they had to act fast. She ordered the survivors to take cover and prepared to shoot the drone down. But before she could fire, a group of armed men emerged from the jungle, their faces hidden behind masks. A fierce firefight erupted. The survivors, armed with the modern weapons, put up a valiant fight, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Amelia, wielding a stolen rifle, moved with a speed and precision that belied her age. She took down several mercenaries with well-aimed shots, but the odds were stacked against them. Sarah, tending to the wounded, was caught in the crossfire. A bullet struck her in the chest, and she collapsed to the ground. Amelia rushed to her side, her heart pounding with dread. Sarah looked up at her, her eyes filled with pain. Amelia, you have to stop them. Her voice trailed off and her eyes closed. Sarah was gone. Amelia's grief turned into a burning rage. She stood up, her face a mask of fury, and charged towards the mercenaries, firing her rifle with deadly accuracy. She fought like a woman possessed, driven by the memory of Sarah and the desire for revenge. David, witnessing Amelia's fury, rallied the remaining survivors. Together, they pushed back the mercenaries, forcing them to retreat into the jungle. Several more survivors were dead or wounded, and their supplies were dwindling. Amelia knew they couldn't stay here. They had to find a way to escape the rainforest and expose the consortium's plot. She turned to David, her eyes filled with determination. David, she said, we're going after them. We're going to find the consortium and make them pay for what they've done. Together, Amelia, David, and the remaining survivors set out on a perilous journey through the jungle, following the trail of the mercenaries. But they were driven by a shared sense of purpose and a burning desire for justice. After days of relentless pursuit, they finally reached the consortium's base. It was a hidden compound, nestled deep within the rainforest, heavily guarded and fortified. Amelia knew that storming the base head-on would be suicide. They needed a plan. Using her knowledge of naval tactics and her experience in infiltration, Amelia devised a strategy. They would use the element of surprise to their advantage, sneaking into the base under the cover of darkness and disabling its security systems. The survivors, led by Amelia and David, infiltrated the base undetected. They disabled the security cameras, cut the power, and neutralized the guards. Soon, they were inside the main control room, where they found the leader of the consortium, a cold, calculating man named Mr. Thorne. Amelia recognized the name immediately. Thorne was a descendant of one of her most bitter rivals from the past, a privateer named Captain Blackwood, whom she had left for dead after a particularly brutal sea battle. Blackwood had somehow survived and passed down his hatred for Amelia to his descendants. Amelia Thorne, Mr. Thorne said, his voice dripping with disdain. I've been expecting you. Blackwood. Amelia spat, her voice filled with contempt. Your hatred has poisoned your blood for generations. Hatred? Mr. Thorne chuckled. No, Captain Thorne, this is about control, about shaping history to our benefit. Your interference was unforeseen, but ultimately insignificant. He activated a device on his wrist, a remote control for the time travel device. We're about to rewrite history, Captain Thorne. ... Amelia lunged at him, but Thorne was too quick. He pressed the button on the device and the room began to shake. A portal opened in the center of the room, a swirling vortex of energy that threatened to consume everything in its path. Amelia knew she had to stop him. She tackled Thorne to the ground, wrestling for control of the device. A struggle ensued, a desperate fight for the fate of history. During the struggle, the device was damaged. It sparked and fizzed, its temporal energies going haywire. In a final act of desperation, Amelia ripped the device from Thorne's hand and plunged it into the collapsing portal. The portal imploded with a deafening roar, sending a shockwave that knocked everyone off their feet. When the dust settled, Mr. Thorne was gone. The portal had vanished and the threat to history had been averted. But the victory came at a cost. The implosion had destabilized the base, and it was beginning to collapse. Amelia knew they had to escape. She gathered the remaining survivors and led them out of the base, just as it crumbled into the jungle floor. But their ordeal was far from over. Amelia, David, and the survivors returned to the crash site, where they used the salvaged plane parts to send a distress signal. Days later, they were rescued by a search and rescue team. They were finally safe. In the aftermath of the rescue, Amelia told her story to the authorities, exposing the consortium's plot and bringing its members to justice. She became a media sensation, a living legend, the pirate captain who had traveled through time and saved the world. She had seen the future, and she knew that the world was on a dangerous path. She decided to use her newfound platform to warn people about the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of preserving history. She spent the rest of her days traveling the world, giving speeches, writing books, and advocating for peace and understanding. She never forgot Sarah or the other survivors who had died in the rainforest. Their sacrifices had given her a purpose, a reason to fight for a better future. And though she missed the sea serpent and the thrill of the open sea, Captain Amelia Stormblade Thorne knew that she had found a new adventure, a new challenge in this strange and wondrous world of the 21st century.